Hello music fans, March is over now, so it's time for me to talk about my top 10 favorite progressive metal and progressive rock albums that were released in March 2023, starting with my number 10, which is Ice Age and their album Waves of Loss and Power. This is the third album by this American band. It's progressive metal. It's the first album of theirs that I listened to. I really enjoyed it. I look forward to going back and checking out their older stuff. It sounds like the vocals from Styx over the music of Dream Theater, so check it out if that sounds appealing. My number 9 is Invent Animate with Heavener. This is more on the metalcore side, but it's fairly progressive metalcore with a lot of djent sounds, some ambient influences. It's the fourth album by this American band, and I heard the single called Immolation of the Night first. I enjoyed that, so I expected this album would be pretty solid, and it did not disappoint. And it's really great to find some good metalcore in 2023. A lot of metalcore these days I find kind of lame and cookie cutter, but this album has a lot of cool guitar parts, catchy vocal melodies, solid chuggy breakdowns, and intense screams. Probably the metalcore album of the year so far for me, if you don't count Periphery, as I classify Periphery more on the prog metal side. Now, my favorite song on here so far, I think, is Without a Whisper. My number 8 is RPWL and their album Crime Scene. This is progressive rock, no metal here really, maybe here and there, but it's more on the progressive rock side. And it's the 8th album by this German band. They sing in English. If you're a fan of bands like Porcupine Tree, Yes, and Riverside, it sounds like a combination of those three bands to me. And I never listened to a full album of theirs before, but I was pleasantly surprised at how good this one is when I listened to it. For a preview of that, check out the song Victim of Desire. There's lots of good songs on this album. It's hard to pick a favorite, but that one's a pretty good one to start with. My number 7 is Crown Lands and their album Fearless. This is progressive rock as well, not much in terms of metal here, but it's the third album by this Canadian band, and I've seen them live when they opened up for the Tea Party. They were great. They blended vibes of Rush, Led Zeppelin, and Tool while remaining accessible and catchy for pop and radio rock listeners. And the opening track on this album is an 18-minute prog epic called Starlifter Fearless Part 2. That's probably my favorite song on the album. It sounds a lot like Rush around the time of 2112, A Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres. The whole album keeps this Rush sound going, though there are a couple of moments that lean more towards the Led Zeppelin vibe than Rush. So this will be a good album for people who've always liked the music of Rush, especially people who liked the music of Rush but couldn't get into Geddy Lee's vocals. Give this band a try. The vocals here are stronger than Geddy's. They're more accessible, easy on the ears. I respect Rush more as a band though for pioneering this sound, but I do still have great respect for Crown Lands for keeping it going. They're more than just an imitator. They do bring their own charm and flair to the sound as well. What am I at? Number 6, I think. Yep. Gorod with The Orb. This is more technical death metal, but it's got some progressive influences to it, so I think it qualifies as proggy. And it's the 7th album by this French band. I heard the early single from it called We Are the Sun Gods. That got my attention. I listened to another one, the title track, The Orb, which is probably my favorite track on here at the moment. The whole album is great. It's just blistering and technical guitar parts, extreme vocals. It's almost all harsh screaming on here. There is the odd moment with some singing for contrast. But check this out if you're a fan of bands like The Faceless, Obscura, Obsidious, or Archspire, or other similar tech death bands with prog influence. Number 5 is Redemption and I Am the Storm. This is progressive power metal. It's the 7th album by this American band, and this band features Tom England of Evergrey on vocals. I really enjoy Evergrey. I expected I would like this, and I was pleasantly surprised by this band. They seem even more progressive than Evergrey. The songs are a little bit hit and miss on the album, though. There are some songs that are amazing and other songs that are pretty safe, like typical radio rock sounding. But check this out if you're a fan of Symphony X, Fates Warning, Evergrey. Check out the song Resilience for their heavy and shreddy side. Really great, impressive guitar shredding there. Check out the emotional depiction of Light for their soft and emotional side with amazing vocal performances. Check out Action at a Distance, which is the longest and most progressive epic on the album, probably my favorite track right now. And they also do a cover of the Genesis song, Turn It On Again. They do it in a prog metal style, which is neat, but this song does stick out like a sore thumb on the album. It doesn't really fit in with the rest of the songs. In general, the keyboards on this album remind me a lot of Symphony X. The vocals, I found they actually sound kind of like Michael Bolton singing progressive power metal, which is interesting. It's kind of neat to hear that. They sound a bit cheesy, but they're amazingly well done. And number 4, I believe, is Enslaved with Heimdal. And this is progressive black metal. It's the 16th album by this Norwegian band. They've never made a bad album, but I really love the last 8 albums in a row that they've done, including this one. When they lean more towards the progressive metal side rather than black metal, but they've always had bits of both prog and black metal, and they still do. They've been shifting more to the prog side of their influences over the years, which I like. Don't get me wrong though, this album will still please black metal fans. It has that intensity as well, but I do think it could also appeal to prog fans, even if they don't like black metal. If they can overlook the harsh vocal style that's sometimes used, there are still some clean singing passages and nice ambient, atmospheric, and more beautiful stuff, but there's also punishing, extreme stuff on here too. This was in my top 5 most anticipated albums of the first quarter. And my favorite track was the title track, Heimdal. Number 3 is Obliviscaris with Exul. This is extreme progressive metal. It's the 4th album by this Australian band. This band is amazing. This is another one of my 5 most anticipated albums of the first quarter, and it lived up to the hype. If you're a fan of bands like An Abstract Illusion, Persephone, Wilderun, you'll like this. Obliviscaris brings the brutality, but they also bring the beauty. They feature extreme harsh vocals, but also clean singing and violin. All 4 of their albums are masterpieces, so it's hard to say where this ranks among them for me. They're all so close. Even their EPs are pretty great. I'll be seeing them live later this year, really looking forward to it. This was a solid release. Number 2 album of March is Periphery with Periphery 5, Djent is Not a Genre. This is progressive metalcore, and of course it's got that Djent sound. And it's the 7th album by this American band, if you count Juggernaut Alpha and Juggernaut Omega as 2 separate albums, which I do. And even though I think this might be my least favorite of their albums, it's still a really good album, as everything they put out is great. They do more orchestral sounds here, more electronic stuff, more jazzy breaks in between the djenty metalcore intensity. They have breakdowns, as well as the odd poppy moment. Really great vocals, but you do have to be accepting of the emo style and occasionally poppy clean vocals, as well as harsh screams. And I think a lot of emo and pop listeners won't like the vocals because there will be too much screaming and intensity for them. And then on the flip side, a lot of the extreme metal purists will like the screaming but won't like the vocals because there's too much clean singing. I like both. I feel like there's a pretty good balance here. There's great guitar riffing, great solos, excellent drumming, cool composition. My favorite track right now is Zagreus. And lastly, my favorite album of March 2023, and so far my favorite album of the year at the moment, is Haken with Fauna. This is progressive metal. It's the 7th album by this band from the UK. This was my most anticipated album of the whole year so far. I love Haken. I saw them live in 2022 with Symphony X, which was probably my favorite live concert I saw in 2022. And I saw some other great ones as well, including Porcupine Tree, the Mars Volta, Opeth, Mastodon, King Gizzard, and the Lizard Wizard. So it was a great year for concerts, and Haken and Symphony X were my favorite. Everything Haken puts out is top notch. And even though I think this album might be in my bottom 2 Haken albums, even Haken's weakest album is better than 99% of bands' albums. 99% of bands' best albums even. This album still cements them as the kings of progressive metal, in my opinion, taking that crown from bands like Dream Theater, Symphony X, and Between the Buried and Me. Haken's going to be carrying the torch forward as those bands are aging. My favorite track on here is Elephants Never Forget. That's it. Let me know what you think. What are your favorite albums that came out in March 2023? Are there any that I missed talking about that you think I would enjoy? Leave it down in the comments below. And until next time, peace out.